Alright guys, it's Tuesday after work and the hockey game's on. The playoffs are in full swing. So Columbus and Toronto. Toronto's down in the series unfortunately, hoping to come back. 0-0 at the moment. Anyway, just have that on in the background. So we're on to the next phase of the project. We've pushed the frame over as far as we can go against the body tub. So that's looking good. We'll probably cover that up shortly as well just to keep the dust off of it. And so what we're doing today is we're moving the sandblaster out so we can get to the engine block and the flywheel and all the, I think the head's back there as well. So we'll drag that out, and then what we'll start to do is we'll start to go through all our bins and we'll pick out the engine components that we need and get those arranged in the garage somewhere. I'm thinking of building a little shelf over the top of my car here to lay some parts out, but we'll figure something out. I am running out of space. I was thinking I'd be able to move this car out in the driveway when I needed some extra space. Still might be able to do that. It's been raining off and on all day today, so it's supposed to rain this afternoon again, so I don't think I want to push that outside at the moment. So we'll just work around it temporarily. And when we start needing some extra space, we'll just move it outside and move it back in if it starts to rain. Alright guys, that's it for now. Back to getting parts out. We'll give you a little update a little later on. Alright guys, just coming up to 9:30. Had a little bit of a break, but just out in the garage closing her down for the night. So got everything out, got the block out, and it still looks pretty good cylinder wise. Obviously needs to be painted on the outside and freshened up a little bit. It's pretty rusty, so that'll have to wire brush down. Of course, all new core plugs need to be installed, etc. Flywheel looks good. Head needs some work. The crank looks really good underneath those yellow towels, and all of the other bits that came off this car. So these are the old bits, and I've yet to bring out any of the new bits. So just brought these out for reference so we can have a look at them. I was just checking the valves out and see if they could be reused possibly, and the verdict is still out on those, so I think we'll probably end up getting new valves. But anyway, that's it for now guys. We'll get back out here tomorrow and continue on. Alright guys, Wednesday, August the 5th, 2020, and we're going to start tonight's work by cleaning up our workbench and doing some reorganization. So the reason, or the inspiration for this, is I want to be able to get my engine block up off of the cart over here and onto the bench so I can install things safely and easily, like the core plugs, freeze plugs, whatever you want to call them. I want a nice flat work surface to work on to be able to do that. I think it'll be a little easier to do it on a bench versus on a stand, at least for the core plugs. So that will entail me cleaning this bench off, and also going to do a little bit more than that. I've got this old IKEA shelf kicking around that's been in the basement for about 15 years in the box. So what I think I'll do is I think I'll install a shelf just below the fluorescent light, or the LED light at the top here, and move all of my charging equipment up. So all the rechargeable lights, the battery packs for the, the leaf blower, the drills, the impact wrenches, etc. I think we'll move those up onto a shelf so we can have a nice clean surface to work on. So that's the job for today, so we'll get started doing that. Alright guys, job one done. So we've got the shelf up, all the chargers up there, some shop manuals and a few other little bits and bobs. So I think we're about ready to get the block up here. Probably going to attempt to lift that myself. Not sure how much it weighs. I have moved it in and out of the back of my old Pathfinder, I remember, so it can't be that heavy. It was only a couple years ago. I haven't lost that much strength in 2 years. So anyway, we'll see if we can get it up on the bench without hurting myself. If I can't do it, I'll wait for Les to come by, but we'll give it a shot and see if we can get it up here. We're going to put it on a piece of wood, which I have over here, so I can just slide it on the piece of wood if required. I want to get it up here and get it stripped down and painted, so probably a better surface to work on it up here than it is down there. That's what we're going to do. Alright guys, managed to get the block up on the bench. It's not too heavy, so just taking a quick look at it. Obviously needs to be wire brushed down still. It was hot tanked, although they kept the aluminum plug in here, and I see the And this is the cam cover, I believe, at the rear. Those are both still in there, which is kind of odd. Anyway, all of the other gallery plugs are out of it. So all the core plugs or freeze plugs, whatever you want to call them, are out. So I guess what we'll do now is we'll put the oil gallery plugs back in. So what I'm thinking of doing is putting the oil gallery plugs back in, taping off or masking off all the surfaces where I don't want to get paint on. Front and rear of the engine, obviously top, bottom is protected by that sheet of plywood. And any of the other surfaces like where the oil filter canister goes, distributor, oil pressure relief valve, the oil pressure switch and the fuel pump and the dipstick will all be sort of masked off. So I guess it's time to get to work. What I plan on doing is wire brushing this, and then I'm going to install the freeze plugs after I paint the block, because I like the look of the freeze plugs. They're brass, and I kind of like the brass look as opposed to the painted over look. So I'm going to mask off the areas where the freeze plugs fit into. Of course, the recesses here as well. We'll clean those up, mask them off before we paint, and then we'll remove the mask, and then we'll add our freeze plugs, core plugs in after that is done. That's the plan. Alright guys, we've got the block all masked up, and just about to give it a good wire brush, and then we'll give it a couple coats of paint with high temperature engine enamel, and we'll let her dry. So there's what she looks like now, all rusty. It'll look better the next time you see it. Alright guys, another job done. We've got 3 coats of black on there and 2 coats of clear. We just rattle canned it with the Duplicolor engine enamel, so we're just using this, and obviously the clear coat for that as well. So I think it looks good. So we'll see how that dries up. We'll let it dry overnight and harden up, and then we'll come back and we'll do a little bit of cleaning on the bores for the freeze plugs, core plugs, and then we'll put those in with a little bit of, I've got some RTV here ready for those. So we'll dig the plugs out and get ready to install those tomorrow evening after work. See you then. Well, just going through my stash of parts, and I pulled out the freeze plugs slash core plugs, and little things annoy me sometimes. So, you know, just trying to get all the stickers. Why would you have to put a big huge sticker like this on every single one of these plugs? Why couldn't you bag them nicely? So now I'm going to have to get this residue off of here, which is going to take me some extra time and effort to do that, and yeah, just slows things down. Alright guys, Thursday evening, welcome back to the Taj Mahal, and we're going to continue working on the engine block, and we're planning on putting in the core plugs tonight. So got the plugs here, we've got my RTV here. We're going to clean out the bores a little bit with a little bit of probably 180 grit sandpaper, and then wipe those out clean. Then we're going to add a little bit of RTV to the edge, just to the edge of the core plugs, and then we're going to tap them in with an appropriate sized socket just on the outer edge, outer circumference of the plug itself. Might be able to set the camera up and show you maybe 1 or 2 of them, so we'll take you along the way when we get to that point. Alright, let's go. One more thing I wanted to discuss before we get started. So there is one problem on this block, and it's with this location here in the face, up by where the cam comes out. So this block, or this port here, is normally not a stepped. You can see there's a step in here. So on a TR6, this type of plug would pound in flush to the face of the block. Unfortunately, because there is a step in here, this plug will not work for this application because it'll sit proud of the face, and of course you need to put the engine plate on the front here. So what they use normally for this application is a dished type plug, not a plug like this. So anyway, I've got a question out there whether I can use this style plug and just cut the edges down and tap that in with some RTV. Again, that plug's not going to go anywhere as long as it seals well, because the engine plate is going to keep it in. So it won't be an issue of actually blowing the plug out. It'll actually just be an issue of whether this will seal or not. It is a very tight fitting plug, so I think it will seal no problem. So I'm going to have to make some decision whether to go with this style plug or to get the dish style plug. So before we get to that point, I just wanted to point that out. Alright guys, and for these plugs that we were talking about yesterday with all the adhesive goop on the back, we've got some Goo Gone, so adhesive remover. So we're going to spray those down and let them soak while we work on the two that don't have any adhesive on them. So once we get to them, hopefully they'll be softened enough we can just get that right off. Alright, first step, as I mentioned, is to start just cleaning this bore out, just to make sure it's got a little bit of, well, no rust first of all, and just make sure we clean any of the residual paint out of here. And we want to give it a little bit of tooth for the plug to stay in there, so just clean this up quickly. It actually look to be in pretty good shape, so when we put these plugs in, we want to put them just below the face of the block by about 1/16 of an inch. The reason why I'm putting them in after I painted the block is I kind of like the look of the brass. A lot of guys will put them in and then paint over them. But like I said, and then there's also an option for steel plugs, so if you put steel plugs in, you'll probably want to paint over them anyway because they're ugly. But the brass plugs are nice looking, so why not keep them exposed? Shop towel, a little bit of alcohol. To grab that debris. Make sure it's nice and clean. Okay, I think that's looking good. So next step, let's break open the RTV and get our core plug ready to go in. Okay, for the smaller plugs, I'm going to be using a 19 mil impact socket, which fits just into the inside diameter of this pretty well. And I'm just going to be using a copper hammer to tap that in. It shouldn't take a lot of force to seat this, so anyway, here we go. I'll get the RTV out. Alright, here's our RTV. And we're just going to add a little bit to the edge. Not too much. It'll just end up getting squeezed out anyway. Just spreading it evenly around. Trying not to get too messy. Gets to a point where you can't really hold on to the plug. Alright. That looks pretty good. So we'll just stick our plug in here best we can. Center it up best we can. Wipe our hands off. Get our hammer and our drift. Center it up. And just tap it in. Okay, and you just want it below the edge a little bit. You want to wipe this up, clean it up, and then we'll have little better look at it once I get some of the excess RTV off of it. Alright guys, first plug is in. You can just see it just below the edge of the surface, so at least I think you can see that. Maybe I can zoom in a little bit. So there you go, there's the first plug in, and we'll move on to the second one and keep working our way around. Alright guys, success. All of the core plugs are now in, and they look good. All the core plugs, I should say, with the exception of this little guy. But all the other plugs are in. Let's see if I can one-hand this thing. So yeah, so they look good. So I'll figure out what I'm going to do with this plug, and then we'll get back out here tomorrow night, and we'll start working on the next phase of this. Alright guys, it's now Friday, and the first objective for today is to get this engine block up on a stand. I'm going to side mount it, so I need to find the hardware to be able to do that. Plus I need to find the plate that goes into my engine stand. I've got one part out over there, and I think the other part is in the trailer, so we got to dig those out. So let's get busy. I should probably wait for help to do this. But I'm impatient. Alright, engine is mounted sideways. We'll grab a bar and we'll flip it up so you can have a look at how I've got it mounted. Alright guys, just a quick view of the side stand engine mount. So I've just used the 4 engine mounting holes with the stock bolts, and we've customized the plate on our engine stand to accept those locations, and just use some big washers, big heavy washers in there, and it sits perfectly. It is on a bit of an angle, which is not an issue, but yeah, for me, I prefer it mounted here versus on the end plate. It just seems a little bit more solid. Plus you have better access to the front and rear plates as well. For example, when you're doing the rear seal, you've got better access on the rear of the engine, so that's why I prefer the side mount. I don't think Alain is a real fan of this, but maybe I'll change his mind after he works with this type setup. Alright guys, I'm on the search for some assembly lube today, so I'm going to go hit the local auto parts stores and see what we can find. May have to order it. Alright guys, just coming up to 5 p.m. and we're just hanging out in the garage waiting for Alain to show up. He's graciously offered some time tonight after work, so I did manage to find some assembly lube. I actually had the engine assembly grease, but I bought some assembly lube, some Lucas brand assembly lube. So we have choice. Choice is always good. So, engine is on the stand, as you saw, and we'll figure out what we want to do first. I think we're going to take some measurements and go from there.